Well, hello, good afternoon, and welcome to Perivale Wood, and welcome to a little broadcast for something called 30 Days Wild. And for those who've not encountered it before, 30 Days Wild is a little project here in the United Kingdom, a sort of challenge they call it, where people are encouraged every day in June, 30 days, hence 30 Days Wild, to get out and do something to engage with the natural world around them. So I'm going to try and do something every day of that, here either on YouTube as a live stream or on Twitter or something, one of those channels. Try and do something every day as part of that, broadcast that, share that about what I'm doing every day in June to engage with the natural world. As you might be able to tell, I'm not in my usual going for a walk in the woods clothing at the moment. Just called in here on my way back from work whilst heading home, so not really going to go for a large walk through the woods or through the reserve to any great extent now, but thought we'd have a quick look here and we'd have a go at talking about what this 30 Days Wild project is about and why it's done. And part of it is done just because we've noticed a sort of disconnect from nature and people are not engaged with the world around them. And we know that in being engaged with the world around you, being near green space, seeing something living, seeing something alive is good for human well-being. So the Wildlife Trusts, an organisation in the United Kingdom that brings together local wildlife trusts that run a variety of nature reserves and do conservation activities all around the country, have created this project. It's been running for several years now, where in June they challenge people once a day to do something to engage with the world around them. It doesn't have to be going somewhere special, it doesn't have to be going to nature, it could be looking out your window and seeing a bird flying past, it could be anything like that. But that's the project, that's what it's about, and as I say, I'm going to try and do something here every day in June and see what happens. So I'm not going to go very far into the woods today because I'm not dressed for proper going out into natural history, but we're going to have a quick wander briefly into the paddock behind me, have a quick look at the pond, see what the water levels are like, see if there's anything around there, and that'll be sort of day one of this project, and I'll continue doing others at different times during the coming 30 days, and we will see what we see. So I'm going to get up, I'm going to start to wander. I will turn the camera around. I will turn the camera around if the button works. There we go. And we'll walk up into just the entrance to the paddock here. One of the areas of grassland that we have on this site. The bulk of the site is woodland, which you can see off to the left, as they will almost certainly be in there at some point later on. But for today we'll just go and have a quick wander up into the paddock here. And you can see the grass is really coming on here, lots of grass seed heads in the paddock, and lots of buttercup. I think they're mainly meadow buttercup in this bit of grassland, which is a common one. But you can see a lot of grass seeds, a lot of grass, lots of yellow buttercups, and quite a few other plants. There's some red clover here with a nice little slug at its base. And on here we've got a shield bug. Now, which shield bug is it? It's a shield bug that doesn't want to be on camera and just keep edging round the... Let's see if it'll focus. So I'll be trying to do this without disturbing it. So I'm pretty sure that is tortoise shield bug, but I will check later. These are what we would properly call bugs, Atroptodon or true bugs. They have sucking mouth parts, and strictly the word bug only applies to these insects, but it is of course used more generally as a word for all invertebrates. Anyway, it's a nice clear sunny day, bit of clouds, but lovely blue sky, bright sunshine, reasonably warm. And all we're going to do today is just wander up, have a look at this pond, see if anything is visible in it. Lots of pondweed, and you can probably possibly see a few insects moving there, and you can possibly see the pondweed twitching slightly, which may well be tadpoles underneath it. There were quite a lot of frogs laid their eggs in this pond earlier in the season, so we'll go and see if we can see any. But you can see also that the pond is drying out quite quickly. There's little bits of water left here, little bits of dampness, but it's dried out a lot in these few warm days we've had. That's not necessarily a problem. A temporary pond that is wet some of the year and dry other parts of the year is a useful type of habitat. It provides a place where things like frogs can get through their breeding cycle, but it also provides a place where you're not going to get fish permanently established, because fish can't cope with obviously drying out. In the main, I'm sure there are exceptions in some places where there are fish that can survive being dry for a long time, but in the main, fish can't survive. So you get these temporary ponds that dry out or nearly dry out. Can be quite useful for amphibians and for some of the invertebrates that can get through a life cycle in the wet times, and then find some way to either survive out the water or to just shut themselves down whilst it's dry and then be ready to come back out when it's wet again. And the temporary ponds therefore give them a place where they can be sort of safe and free from things that might predate them. Lots of there's some willows. These are the trees that you can see on the edge of the pond here are willows, which are a wet tolerant tree. So again, they do well in this habitat because the other trees can't cope with the very damp waterlogged conditions for some of the year, and therefore they get to survive when the other trees would in other places perhaps compete with them and drive them out. Rather an attractive tree, willow. We don't have a lot of willow in this reserve, but we do have a few clumps. This is a nice little group here that we manage by cutting down at this sort of height, just about head height or just over, every few years, and that causes them to just bush away and produce this luxuriant foliage. So that's as far as we're going to go into the reserve today, because as I say, I'm not really dressed for it today. But we'll go back towards where we started. We'll have a quick look at something else which shows some interesting invertebrate behaviour, and then we'll call today's broadcast a thing and finish it, because that's really just a quick introductory one to say this is the start of the 30 Days Wild project and challenge, and I will start to do more over the next 30 days, or the next 29 days I suppose, for the rest of June, at least somewhere, probably mainly here on the YouTube channel. I'll aim to get some content out of some form of engagement with wildlife over those days. Probably longer stuff on days when I'm not working, and maybe something far much briefer in the evenings when I am working, but we will see. So what we've got here, I've taken the side off so we can see it, is a nest box essentially for solitary bees. And these are a species of bee that in one of two ways make little places for their... Okay, I think we briefly lost the broadcast there, so I'll start that explanation again. So this is a nest box for solitary bees, and these are bees that make little places for their larvae to grow. And what they do is they will make either a little clump of leaves, they'll cut some leaves, and those ones are called leaf cutter bees, and they'll make a little cell for the out of leaves. I don't think there are any of the leaf cutter ones on this side. Let's have a look on this side and see if I can see one of them. No, I think these are all another type of bee. But they make a little cell out of leaves, lay an egg in it, provision it with some pollen and some nectar, and then its larva hatches and consumes that and moves on. The alternative, which I think is what nearly all of these, this might be leaf cutter actually, these might be cut leaves, but I think these are last year's. The alternative method is they gather mud and make a little mud enclosure, and that's what these are. You see the pollen they provided here for the larva, and these ones tend to be called the mason bees, and they will create these little cells again, lay the larva in them, and the larva will then feed up on that pollen, largely protected from predators because they're nicely hidden inside something, and go on and do their life cycle. So I'll put the covers back on. These are the viewing covers that we take off so we can have a look at what it looks like inside. But they go back on so they're not exposed to light. I don't think it would do much harm if they were exposed to the light, but obviously it's not how they would be in nature, so we do cover them up. So there we go. There's a bit more wildlife, a bit more of a start. We're here on 30 Days Wild at Perivale Wood, and we'll turn the camera around again and I will say goodbye for this evening, and I will be back sometime tomorrow to do something else engaging with the natural world, and on that occasion dressed in clothing slightly more sensible for being out in nature than I'm wearing at the moment. So good evening all.